And today on page 3. Please turn to page 3 of your textbooks.
Hey, hi, hello. I'm Steph Chef, and this is Crochet and Creepy, where I tell you something creepy and make you something cute. So today, while I tell you something creepy, I'm going to be working on my Sekhmet sweater. Look at it. Look at this yoke. Look at it. It is a pattern that is written by Luisa of the New Moon Designs. She is a wonderful and amazing crochet designer, and I will link her info below. But for now, let's get started. And now to regale you with tales of the creepy. So today, I'm going to be telling you about the murder of Travis Victor Alexander. This story is a little bit of a hometown story for me because it takes place in Arizona, and that is where I am from. I actually remember this story breaking back in like 2008, and it was just this crazy, huge, wild story at that time. So that's why I kind of wanted this to be the first creepy story that I tell you. So for a little bit of background on Travis, he was born on July 28th, 1977 in Riverside, California, and that makes him a Leo, of course. The first decade of Travis's life was actually pretty rough. Both of his parents were addicted to meth, and he and his siblings were left alone a lot, just by themselves. They had to make themselves food, scrounge around, find what they could, which sounds to me like a pretty hard way to begin life. One of the bright spots in Travis's early life was his great-grandfather. Even though Travis didn't get to see him very often, probably only like once or twice a year, his great-grandfather always made him feel special and taught him how to believe in himself. His encouragement is probably what helped Travis rise above his situation. So when Travis was about 11 years old, he went to go live with his grandmother. And this was a huge positive change in his life. Travis's grandmother gave him a stable home, which he hadn't had before, and she started taking him to her church, which was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is a mouthful. It's better known as the LDS Church or the Mormon Church. So from then on, religion became pretty important to Travis, and he attended church pretty regularly. So under the care of his grandmother, Travis grew up to be a pretty vibrant, outgoing, fun-loving guy who had a pretty positive outlook on life. He ended up moving to Mesa, Arizona, and getting a job with a multi-level marketing company called Prepaid Legal Services. And at that job, he was a salesman and a motivational speaker, which means he had absolutely no qualms about getting up and speaking in front of a crowd of people, which I admire, but just cannot relate to. I will stay behind my camera in the back room of my house. Thank you very much. Anyway, things were going pretty well for Travis at his job, and in 2006, he attended a prepaid legal conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. Snazzy. So at that conference, Travis met a lot of new people, including Jodi Arias. So I'm not going to go too deep into her background, but she was born in Salinas, California on July 9th, 1980, which makes her a Cancer. And I'm not saying that her zodiac sign is telling us something, but I'm not saying it either. So moving on. Okay, so back in 2006 at a rainforest cafe in Las Vegas, Nevada. What a visual. So many colors. Travis and Jodi meet. Apparently, they had a pretty instant connection. They sort of just hit it off right off the bat. They just instantly took a liking to each other. At that time, though, Jodi was in a relationship with another man, but she ended that relationship pretty quickly after she met Travis. Pause for crochet technicality. So after that, Jodi and Travis started communicating with each other pretty regularly, emailing all the time, calling each other, the whole 9 yards. It looked like they were going to start a relationship between themselves. However, there was just one problem. Jodi was not a member of the LDS Church, which was pretty important to Travis. So Travis introduced her to his religion. He started taking her to the Mormon Church, and eventually in November of 2006, she was baptized into the church. So officially a member. So since things were still going pretty well for them, in February of 2007, they made it official and actually started dating each other. At that point, though, they were still long distance. Jodi was living in California, and Travis was still at his place in Mesa, Arizona. So in the beginning, their relationship was really good. They were having fun getting to know each other and traveling together. But after a while, things started to get pretty rocky. Apparently, both Travis and Jodi were pretty jealous, so they ended up actually breaking up in June of that year, 2007, after only 5 months of dating. When they broke up, they still remained friends, though. They still kept communicating with each other pretty regularly, and they maintained the physical aspect of their relationship. So they had a little friends with benefits thing going on. So that breakup happened in June of 2007, and in July of 2007, so just a month later, Jodi ended up actually moving to Mesa, Arizona, to a house that was pretty close to Travis's. Coincidence? So they kind of stayed friends with benefits, whatever they had going on, for a while, until Travis started actually dating other women, which Jodi was not a fan of. Your hair, madam, it is getting in your face. One of the women that Travis dated was named Luisa, and on one occasion she told police that she and Travis had just been hanging out at her house, watching a movie, just chilling, when they heard a knock at the front door. So they went to check, and they found that nobody was at the front door. They didn't think anything of it until later that night when Travis had to leave. He noticed that his tires on his car were slashed. So at first they thought, okay, just random act of violence, maybe some kids pulling a prank or messing around, until the next day, the exact same thing happened. There was another knock at the door, nobody was at the door, Travis found his tires slashed again, which sucks because tires are expensive. So I don't think that they could ever prove 100% that that was Jodi, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption to say that it was Jodi who did it. Also around that time, Lisa received a really rude anonymous email calling her names, telling her that she should be ashamed of herself, and that was never proven to be Jodi either, but I think it's another pretty safe assumption to say that it was Jodi, because who else? After that, Lisa just decided that she had had enough, so she ended things with Travis, and he went back to being single. And I think the fact that he hadn't found the one made him get a little introspective and start taking a look into his own life. In a blog post that he wrote in May of 2008, he said, quote, "I think all of us spend too much time trying to find the right one when we should be trying to become the right one. I realized that the reason I wasn't married wasn't because the type of person I was looking for didn't exist, but that the type of person that I wanted wouldn't be interested in me." End quote. He wrote that only about a month before he died, and I think that gives us a little bit of perspective as to where his head was at that time. I don't think that he thought Jodi was the kind of person that he wanted to settle down with to marry. So in June of 2008, Travis had been casually seeing another woman, and he was really interested in her. She went to his church, he really liked her, and her name was Mimi. They'd been on a couple of dates, but Mimi saw Travis more as a friend, even though he was interested in something more. And Travis had these plans to go to Cancun, Mexico for a prepaid legal conference/vacation, and he had invited Mimi to go with him. And Mimi had initially said yes, but when she decided that she only saw him as a friend, she told him that he could go ahead and invite somebody else instead of her. But Travis was like, no problem. We can still go together just as friends. It's totally fine. Let's not change the plans. So the two of them were supposed to leave for Cancun on June 10th, 2008. Meanwhile, Jodi also seemed to be moving on with her life at that point. She had moved back to Yreka, California, and was living at her grandparents' place. While she was living there, they had a little bit of a scare on May 28th. There was a burglary at her grandparents' place, and one of the things that was stolen was her grandfather's gun. So Jodi was also still working for prepaid legal services at that time, and she met this guy named Ryan at one of their work seminars in Oklahoma. Ryan and Jodi hit it off, and they started talking, and they made plans for Jodi to come visit him in Utah and attend another prepaid legal services work seminar while she was there. So June 4th was the day that Jodi had planned to meet Ryan in Utah. So on June 2nd, Jodi rented a car from Redding, California, and on the morning of June 3rd, 2008, she took off from her home in Yreka and started her long drive. Jodi first headed down to Los Angeles to meet a friend. However, she never met up with that friend and continued on her drive. So June 4th came, and Ryan was not able to get a hold of Jodi. He tried calling her all day, he tried texting her, but no answer, and her phone ended up being shut off. So he was starting to get a little worried, wondering, where is she? So finally, at around 11 p.m. on the 4th, Ryan gets a call from Jodi. He asks where she's been, where is she, what's happening, and she tells him that her cell phone battery died, her car ran out of gas, and she got lost. And so after all of that, she was tired, so she pulled over and went to sleep on the side of the road, and that is why she had been so MIA. At that time, she told Ryan that she was about 100 miles away from Las Vegas. And by the time Jodi finally arrives in Utah, it is the morning of June 5th. And that morning, Ryan noticed that Jodi had dyed her hair brown. It was previously blonde, and she had some cuts on her hands. Jodi brushed that off, though, told them it was nothing, and they attended the final day of the prepaid legal conference, and then they went to dinner with some of Ryan's friends, and then they hung out at his house that night and had a movie and makeout session. After that, Jodi went home to California and returned the rental car, which was at that point missing the floor mats and had a Kool-Aid stain on the floor. Kool-Aid. So back in Mesa, it is now the 9th of June, and Mimi is getting pretty worried because she hasn't heard from Travis in a few days, and she thinks that is pretty weird since they're supposed to be going to Cancun together tomorrow. So after not being able to get a hold of him via call, text, anything, she decides she's going to go over to his house and check it out and see what is going on with Travis. So when Mimi gets to his house, she notices that the front door is locked, so she can't get in. Oh, hi, kitty. Thank you for joining me for Tales of the Creepy.
Keep going.
She's going to chase my yarn. So once Mimi gets to Travis's house, she notices that his front door is locked, which I guess was pretty weird for Travis because he never locked his door, which I do not recommend. Lock your doors. Thank you. So since she couldn't get into Travis's home, she went back to her own house and she called her friend Michelle to try and get her to help figure out what was going on with Travis. So Michelle told Mimi that she would meet her back at Travis's house because Michelle had been able to get Travis's garage code. So with that code, they could enter his house through his garage. So once Mimi and Michelle arrive at Travis's house, they get inside. They notice that Travis's laptop and his cell phone were there in his den on the desk. So they go upstairs next, and there they run into Travis's roommate, Zach. Travis had two roommates. They were Zach and Enrique. And even though they lived together, they didn't really spend much time together. They were kind of just roommates rather than friends. So they stayed out of each other's business for the most part. So Mimi and Michelle asked Zach, "Hey, have you seen Travis? We haven't heard from him in a few days." And Zach tells them that Travis is gone to Mexico. He left already. Mimi says, no, I'm supposed to be going with him tomorrow. Something's not right. So after hearing that, Zach is now worried also. So he decides to go get Travis's key to his room so they can get inside Travis's bedroom, which also was locked. So once Zach got into Travis's bedroom, unfortunately what he found was a very bloody crime scene with Travis deceased in his own master shower. They immediately called the police, and the police sent over investigators to try to figure out what happened to Travis. So the way that Travis was killed was very brutal. He had been stabbed over 20 times, his throat had been cut almost ear to ear, and he had been shot in the head. When police searched the scene, they found some fingerprints, a bloody handprint on the wall, and some hair. When they searched the rest of his house, they found some bed sheets and a camera in the washing machine, and it looked like those items had already been run through a wash cycle. So the camera was in pretty bad condition, but the memory card inside of the camera was okay. So the police handed that memory card off to another investigator for him to try and recover whatever was on it. So that same night, when detectives asked Travis's friends who they thought could have done this to him, the answer that they received was Jodi Arias. His friends told police that Jodi had been obsessed with Travis and that she did not like that he was dating other women, trying to move on, and that if anyone had done this to him, it was probably her. So following that information, police gave Jodi a call, kind of as a general first interview, see what her take is. And when they called her, she seemed super helpful, super willing to help them. She let them know that she was out of town. She had actually been making a drive to Utah at that time, and she had not seen Travis since April of 2008, so she had no idea what could have happened. Jodi ended up telling 3 different versions of what happened that night, and that was version 1. Police were pretty quickly able to prove that that was not true, that Jodi in fact was there. Because remember that good old SD card, the memory card that they found? Police were able to recover what was on it, and they were even able to recover the deleted items from it. Technology. Even in 2008, which is pretty impressive. The photos were time-stamped on the afternoon of June the 4th, and Jodi was definitely on some of them. Apparently, what had happened was Jodi and Travis had taken some nude photos of each other in Travis's bed, and then it looked like they had moved on and gone to his shower. One of the last photos of Travis alive is him posing for the camera from his shower. So along with those photos, to prove that Jodi was there, they also found a latent fingerprint of hers, and the bloody handprint that was found on the wall. It was determined that the blood in it was a mix of Jodi's and Travis's. So she was definitely there that day. So with all that evidence, Jodi was arrested, and shortly thereafter, she changed her story again. This time, she told police that she had been there when Travis was killed, but that she didn't kill him. A man and a woman wearing ski masks had broken into the home and had killed Travis. She says she doesn't remember much of the incident. She thinks she got knocked out or something, but she does remember the man and the woman killed him, not her. This story seemed pretty fishy to just about everyone who heard it, so by the time her case came to trial, which was a couple years later, it started in 2013, Jodi had changed her story for the 3rd time. So for her trial, Jodi's defense was that she had killed Travis, but she had done it in self-defense. She said that she had been taking pictures of him in the shower and that she dropped his new camera, which caused him to fly into a rage and attack her. So she said she had to kill him because she was afraid that she would lose her own life if she didn't. With that defense, Jodi pretty much all out attacked Travis's character. She said that he had abused her throughout their relationship and had done other things which I won't get into, but she pretty much just slandered him a lot. So Jodi was really trying to paint herself as the victim and not Travis, the person that she killed. So after a long trial, Jodi was finally found guilty of murder, but what kind of complicated things in her case was the death penalty. Originally, the prosecution said they were going to ask for the death penalty, and Jodi herself even said that she would rather have the death penalty than life in prison because she couldn't imagine seeing herself live out the rest of her life in one spot. So once she was found guilty, the jury had to decide whether or not to actually give her the death penalty. The first time they voted, they actually came up hung, so they could not come to a unanimous decision on whether or not to give her the death penalty. I think that happened either 1 or 2 more times before it finally came down to the judge, who had to make the decision. At some point during that process, Jodi ended up changing her mind, surprise, surprise, and deciding that she did not want the death penalty, but wanted to stay alive. So the judge ended up giving her natural life in prison with no chance of parole. So in the end, Jodi was convicted of killing Travis, and she is living the rest of her life in prison with no chance of parole. So in this case, there is a little bit of justice at least. His killer was locked up. So in my personal opinion, I think that Jodi is a sociopath and a master manipulator. I think she's used to getting people to do what she wants to do. And I do not think that she killed Travis in self-defense. Kind of just doesn't really add up if you think about it. However, I was not there, so I cannot say with a 100% certainty that that is the case. But let me know what you think. Do you think that Jodi is not lying, that she's telling the truth, and that she killed him in self-defense? Or do you think that she came up with that story after living in jail for a few years? So let me know your thoughts on this case in the comments below. This is as far as I got on this today. It's upside down, but you can still tell. I'm about to finish the row. definitely not going to finish it today, so you're going to have to tune in next episode to see any progress I've made on it. You can check my Etsy shop, which I will also link below, to see what I have that you can buy. Thanks for hanging out with me, and if you liked this video at all, give me a little like and maybe even a subscribe, and let me know what else you want me to talk about that's creepy. It doesn't have to be true crime, it does have to be creepy. Okay, see you next time.